Have you ever stopped and wondered why one specific region seems to be at the absolute center of, well, almost all of human history? We're about to dive into how this single area gave birth to the very ideas of cities, laws, and faiths that literally define our world today. I mean, just to get a sense of the scale we're talking about, think about this number. Over 4 billion people. That's more than half of everyone on Earth. Practice a faith that traces its origins back to this one single region. That alone is just staggering. So the place we're talking about is Mesopotamia, that land tucked right between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Geographers call this whole area the Fertile Crescent, and it was basically the perfect incubator, a protected, resource-rich spot for civilization to get its start. Now, there's actually a specific term for a place like this, a cultural hearth. And that's really the first big idea we need to unpack here. A cultural hearth is essentially an innovation center. You can think of it like a kitchen where the core recipes for society are created, all the foundational ideas and technologies, before they spread out and influence the rest of the globe. And let me tell you, Mesopotamia was one of the most powerful hearths in all of history. And, this didn't happen overnight. It took thousands of years. Just look at this timeline. It all kicks off way back around 9500 BCE with the move to farming. Fast forward a few thousand years, and that leads to the very first cities in Sumer. From there, you get the first written laws, which sets the stage for massive empires that would shape the world for centuries to come. All right, so let's zoom in a bit on those first critical sparks of innovation, the ones that really made everything else possible. What you're looking at here might just be the single most important invention in human history: writing. The Sumerians came up with this system, cuneiform, to keep track of everything from trade deals to stories. For the first time ever, knowledge could be perfectly preserved and passed down. It was a complete game changer for civilization. But writing was just the beginning. The Sumerians basically gave us the entire toolkit for modern society. They had advanced math to build incredible structures. They invented the wheel to move goods around. They created the city-state, a whole new way of organizing government and culture. This wasn't just a list of neat ideas. It was the blueprint for building a complex world. And this idea of writing down the rules, absolutely revolutionary. When King Hammurabi of Babylon created his famous code, it meant that justice was no longer just some guy's opinion. The law was the same for everyone, everywhere in his empire. That consistency provided the stability you need for a civilization to really take off and thrive. But this region wasn't just a hearth for inventing technology and government. It was also a spiritual hearth. It produced a set of ideas about God that would fundamentally reshape the entire planet. You have to remember, at this time, pretty much every culture on Earth worshipped a whole bunch of gods. A god for the sun, a god for the harvest, you name it. And then, out of this region, comes this totally radical new idea: monotheism. The belief that there was only one all-powerful God. This was a massive shift in how humans saw their place in the universe. And from that single, powerful idea, the three faiths you see here were born. You have Judaism, tracing its roots back to Abraham, then Christianity, which grew out of Judaism, and then, centuries later, Islam, founded by the Prophet Muhammad. There are three distinct faiths for sure, but they all grew from the exact same spiritual soil in this one remarkable place. But of course, these world-changing ideas didn't just stay put. Just like the inventions that came before them, these faiths spread out from their hearth across the globe. Geographers call this diffusion. And what's really fascinating is how they spread in very different ways. So Judaism spread mainly through migration. After being exiled by the Romans, the Jewish people moved all over the world in what's known as the diaspora. This is a perfect example of what's called relocation diffusion. It's when people literally carry their culture and beliefs with them to a new place. And you can see the result of that today, from ancient communities in Europe all the way to the world's largest synagogue in New York City, founded by German immigrants. Christianity spread, on the other hand, was closely tied to empire. First, it got a huge boost by becoming the official religion of Rome. Then, much later, during the age of colonization, European missionaries actively worked to spread their faith. Building a massive cathedral like this one in Bolivia, right in the heart of the former Inca Empire, was a very powerful symbol of that religious and cultural conversion. Islam also spread through conquest, but trade was a huge engine for its diffusion. This is what we call contagious diffusion, where an idea spreads from person to person along networks, kind of like a virus, but in a good way. Mosques, like this incredible one in Tunisia, were built at these vital crossroads for desert caravans. They became these amazing hubs of both spiritual and economic life, where faith was shared right alongside silk and spices. So, okay, we've seen this region as a hearth, a place where ideas were born. But for hundreds of years, it also became a hub, a powerful center of control that sat right at the crossroads of the entire known world. And for centuries, the empire that mastered this hub was the Ottoman Empire. Just look at this map. This is them at their peak. Their territory was massive. They controlled the vital land bridge connecting Europe, Asia, and Africa. They were, for all intents and purposes, the gatekeepers for the flow of goods, armies, and ideas. And this wasn't just some brief flash in the pan. The Ottomans controlled this region for over 500 years. That is an incredible stretch of stability and influence, longer than the Western Roman Empire lasted. So how'd they pull it off? How did they stay in power for so long? Well, it really came down to a few key things. They had a powerful, modern military, and they controlled all the key trade routes, which brought in a ton of wealth. But here's the really clever part: their social policy. They practiced religious tolerance, allowing all the different groups in their empire to keep their own faiths. That simple act minimized rebellion and created a really stable society across a huge, diverse territory. Which really leaves us with one final big question to think about. From the very first written laws to the belief in one God, so many of the foundational ideas of our modern world spark to life in this one spot. So it's worth asking yourself, what would our laws, our cities, our beliefs, our entire world look like today if history's most important cradle had never been lit?